Hello and welcome to the Stampscapes Lab. Half page. Oh, I guess this is a reflection card. It's a little bit less reflective because it's going to be this lower portion, instead of it being a really reflective mirrored silver or gold cardstock. I'm going to be trying out a piece of the printable holographic vinyl sticker paper down below like this. It's just the plain one, not the starry one like I used in the previous video. And then a half-page piece of the aged floral stationery paper up top. We have these large flowers right here, so it's going to be kind of a condensed space right here. I don't have a lot of things up here to reflect down here. It's just supposed to be kind of cool looking in terms of the colors that this holographic provides, but there is some reflective quality to it naturally. So we'll get a little bit of it, but okay, so that being said, I usually keep this top area when it's being reflected in this lower area, and it's all about that reflective quality to silver mirrored cardstock or gold cardstock. I keep it a little bit simple up here because having a kind of a cleaner silhouette reflects in this lower portion a little bit better. So I'm going to try just, I don't know, just filling this area in with some imagery. Hello, Linda, how are you? We're going to try something different here, Linda, and we'll see how this works out. Or if it works out, I should say. And let's see, let's go ahead and start stamping some imagery in here. Let's see, let me just use my hybrid black here. And then we'll switch off to the Brilliance water-based pigment ink down below. We'll see if I can get this one going pretty fast here. Your experiment looked great, Linda, with the, it was the Tim Holtz something, right? Pencils or something like that. Hello, Zealous Est. Good to see you. Happy Tuesday to you. Okay, holding a little bit longer on this paper. Sometimes I lift too early and it's like, I didn't get, a really good crisp impression. Or it's a crisp impression, but it's a lighter impression. So clean enough right here, we can see that, a decent amount of the ink transferred, which we want to see on the printed paper like that. And let's do this. I just did kind of a scene real similar to this on this aged vinyl, but I really like this. I guess this covered bridge, with this, I don't know, that imagery that this aged paper provides. I really like that look, or that combination there. All right, a little bit of a slope right there for some additional trees to be planted in here. Like about like so. Let me leave a little bit of space in there. I might put like a moon or a sun in there. Whatever it is, I don't know, light source, white light source. And, okay, so my road is coming this way. We'll arc it, curve it off, kind of like this. We'll follow this path right here and extend this down like so. Okay. We'll try to build this really fast here because I need to get into all of that white pigment ink work down below on that sticker paper. That sticker paper is really fun to work with. When I don't do it for a while, I wouldn't say I think about it a lot because, we got so many other techniques and everything like that we're doing. But when I get back into it, it's like, oh yeah, that paper and that Brilliance ink is just, it's such a dynamic combination, you know, to utilize. I always have to really clarify when I do my posts on the other boards that so people don't buy like the holographic vinyl sticker paper, and they make sure they get the printable vinyl holographic sticker paper, or they buy the printable vinyl holographic sticker paper, and then they use a VersaFine Clair or something like that to stamp on there. It's really easy when you get the combination down, but there's so many different versions that look so similar to it that you gotta get everyone stamping or equipping correctly. All right, so that's how that's going to look right there. Oh yeah, I put the fence in here on the previous version of this combination right here. What is it? Oh yeah, it was this one right here. I couldn't remember what I did. That might be good. Actually, maybe I don't want anything too heavy to be reflecting down here. Okay, so in this lower portion, okay, let's get the layout here situated. I'm going to just have, there's all kinds of different things I like putting down in this lower portion, but I think I'm just going to have this like as a simple little pond or something like that down in this lower portion right here. This is supposed to really push depth because this is something that's really close to us. So I'm going to put these larger rocks in here. So it just looks like a little, side pond, not like a big lake or anything like that. Because again, this is like really close to us. So it's like it would almost be like a puddle that I'm depicting here. Pigment crayons, got it. Yeah. Okay. Maybe add a zombie or gravestone. That would be a good one. I'll do that. I'll do that like around maybe July or something, like August maybe. I love doing that type of stuff though, especially now that we have so many how many sheets of Halloween imagery do I have now? Is it 6 or is it 5? I don't remember. Okay, rocks here. I'm gonna sacrifice some of these little floral elements down here just so I have some of these other rocks in this upper portion to transition. That's the word I'm looking for. To transition into this lower holographic area. Yeah, in a Halloween scenario, I've done this a couple times, I think, and it's based around that legend of a Sleepy Hollow and that covered bridge animated piece. But I've stamped out, or like a Lady Rider, I think it was. I think I've done it in a couple different sizes, but I've stamped her without her head, and I've just put that pumpkin. I've just drawn it like a little pumpkin, or cut out a little pumpkin out of an orange piece of paper and put it on her lap, so it's like the Headless Horseman type of scenario using this covered bridge before. That's one of my favorite little scenarios to do around Halloween. I haven't done it for a while, but yeah. Okay, let's put some other rocks up in here too, I think, just to create a little bit more of a transition. And these are just some smaller versions of these ones right here. I stamped that one with my Brilliance Black. I'll go back to my hybrid here. And the Brilliance is fine too, but the hybrid might be a little bit thinner and it might penetrate my paper a little bit easier. All right, let's go over here. Like that. Actually, that stamped out fairly light right there. I'll color that in with a colored pencil a little bit. And let's balance that off a little bit here too. This row of rocks is off of one of the desert series sets. Someone said, "Hey, you know, when you're doing your," I haven't been writing down or typing out everything that I've used in all of my videos. I don't know, maybe for a couple months, but someone says, "Hey, you need to mention what stamps you're using in your videos." It's like, yeah. I've been too busy having fun experimenting. Okay, so we have these rocks right here. They'll be a little bit more defined when I color and shade everything in like that. But that's the top sequence like that. And that's going to look like this right here. We'll put some other larger rocks right in here to create like a little, like I said, like a, I don't know, whatever, like a seasonal puddle or something like that, I guess. But, okay, in order for those to show up a little bit better and to be able to color, render, shade them somewhat, what we need to do is we need to lay down some white pigment ink underneath them. Now, I was wondering how that was going to really work out because, you know, I'll try to keep an eye on what stamps. Actually, here, I'll keep these on here just for reference. So I'm going to put these like fields of white pigment ink behind roughly where I think these rock images are going to be placed in this lower section. And we'll also use the boulders with lichen right down in here. So I'm going to go beyond where the imagery is. Maybe I should stamp these out in like a light tone just for reference, and then I'll just stamp right over it again, if I can. Let's do that. I think I better do that on this one. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just take a really light toned ink that I think I'll be able to see, maybe. And we'll get kind of a rough idea, or, well, I guess it's a pretty specific idea, rather, of where these rocks are going to be located within this field right in here. Okay, so let's see. We'll create a kind of a rough kind of center thing. I don't think I'm going to put like big rocks like all throughout this area, but we'll leave like a little pool right in here. So how about like a larger one right over here? All right, I need to clean my stamps off because we're going to stamp this in a pretty light tone so that I can cover it up with that white pigment ink and not go too dark with this. Actually, I can probably just clean some of this off a little bit and just stamp it. It's probably going to provide enough of a image where I can reference it for the size, I guess. Let me see. Yeah. We'll use the pad. Okay. Let's just try, yeah, let's go with this one right here, desert sand. If I can't see it, then I'll just, I'll use a darker one. All right, let me see here. I'll go about like so. I want to have some type of foliage, I think, around it too. Yeah. It's interesting. It looks like I stamped like white on darker with this color. It's kind of interesting. Okay, this is a light tone, and it stamps out just like that. So, oh, it's almost like, yeah, it's almost like white. It's kind of interesting. I guess that makes sense. I don't know. I never really thought about that before, but it is a very surface-oriented type of whatever coating on here, emulsion coating, for the purpose of drying inks really quickly. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just that light tone right on top of there. And it looks opaque. That's the thing that kind of surprises me. All right, let's go for another large one right around here. We'll extend out into here. I usually like to make it a little bit of a sneaky type of S-curve type of movement in the scene, you know, so kind of, you know, there's a little bit of a whatever visual movement to the entrance of a scene. If it's really tall, not if it's like a quarter-page card or something like that. All right, so we have like that. And then let's go with a larger rock right in here, I think, just to change the scale of this foreground area a little bit. There's a lot more ink on there than I thought. Black ink. All right, let's see. We'll use a little bit of an angle. We'll go down like that, I think. Okay, it's going to extend out that way, but here's our little snaky type of entrance into the scene, like that. All right. I think I kind of, on this piece right here, doing this, I'm like 70, I think there's 75% of it, of this process right here. I think I know what I'm doing, but I don't know for sure, you know, about this process on this, what it's going to look like. I was thinking about if I get this like white field in here where I'm stamping around these objects in here, I was thinking about trying to stamp some imagery in there in color, like, you know, leaves or something like that, and they would be a little bit greenish tinge like that. Or I could stamp something in, oh, maybe a little bit of like a mauve plum color like this that would, you know, reference the colors up in this upper section here. So white on here, and then some of these leaves. I don't know, now that I see this though, I guess I could just stamp this directly on here without getting that white in the background. So let's see how it goes here. Stays on is the only thing that works on the vinyl sticker. Yeah, right. It's too bad that the stays on white, you know. I don't think, we wouldn't be able to blend with that too much, or I don't know, can you? But that would be an interesting media surface combination, I think. I need to get that. There's a bunch of re-inkers that I need to get, and one of them has been, and it has been for a couple years, the white stays on re-inker bottle. I barely even use that pad. I don't know if I use the pad at all, but by the time I got around to using it, that ink was just dry in the pad. I think it's like one of those things with the regular stays on, like black stays on. You just have to kind of re-ink every time you're going to use it, unless you're using it all the time. Just because it dries out, you know. Sitting around, or in my stays on pads, what I really should do is I should really store them in like a Ziploc bag on my desk here, so that it doesn't get dried out so fast just sitting around. Okay, so that is my field of tone right over those impressions right there. You can kind of see where those impressions are right there, in that section, like right there. So that's my whiteout over those images, and then I'll stamp over the top of it. It's a little bit more opaque than what it looks like. At an angle, you can really see that like that, but that white looks like that, okay? But what I'm looking for is I'm just trying to provide enough of a foundation where I can color those rocks once I stamp them in black. Because I like to get some tone and color in them, where they're not going to be just absolutely see-through, showing all of those variations of color right through them, like a window. I mean, you could. I do that, you know, sometimes, like if I'm doing reflection cards, and I just stamp out these rocks just in black, and, you know, that silver cardstock, or the gold one, mirrored one, just shows right through. You know, I don't bother doing this whiteout type of thing. All right. The biggest thing right here is this little transition right here. When I get a little bit of a blob like that, I like to transition it a little bit more if I can up top. I'm doing a little bit more of this movement now that I know I can. I didn't think I could really kind of spread it around, and you can't really do it too much, but you can a little bit by doing this wiping circular motion I found in the just previous video. You kind of have to get it built up a little bit, though, I'm finding. Maybe not do it straight onto the paper, because that emulsion on this with that quick drying element grabs and dries it really fast. But maybe it's after you get it built up a little bit, and then you can kind of move it around a little bit more, because it's you're moving around like a caked up, stacked application of the medium, you know, which is thicker. Because any water-based medium coming in contact with this surface, it really grabs and dries it really fast, which it's designed to do. Okay, so that's what we have blocked off like that, and let's do it for these two other impressions. That little tiny bit right down there, so you can kind of squeeze your applicator like that and make it a little bit more narrow. I have to kind of fight off this urge or whatever to squeeze it a little bit harder, because if I do, I'm going to get like a more solid kind of blob of this white pigment ink on here, as opposed to getting like a more powdery application of it. So it takes a little bit of touch and patience, just to keep building it up. I get blobs all the time, but then what I do is I just extend that area out with a kind of a drier application of the media with just more taps like this. And then I'm going to be blending out these lower areas right down here with some additional rocks too. So rocks and colors, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about that when you get into it. It's going to look all kind of real blobby probably. And then what I do after I do all of my coloring and applications of imagery, we come back in over the top of it and I add more pigment ink over the top of it, and that usually blends it out really sufficiently, hiding the awkward blobby application. I mean, that goes for everything though. White pigment ink at the end. It looks great as kind of fog and atmospheric types of textures and light, and it covers up a lot of I don't know, awkward applications or moments during the rest of the process. So if you had something like that, like a go-to kind of fix-it-all type of thing, it's good to employ that and have it become kind of a technique. And this one's mine here. I'd really recommend it for everything because it can add a lot of atmosphere into a scene. Hello, Eclipse of Soul. Good to see you, Debbie. Yeah, thanks for catching another live here. A little impromptu one. I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about the printable vinyl holographic since Friday, and I thought, I want to do another one of those again. I kind of like to do it, kind of explore these other media techniques. So this one's going to be a little bit of a twist on the reflection card idea. So it's kind of exploring it a little bit more, just, I don't know, getting some reps in, we can say too, but a little bit of a twist on previous applications of this, I guess the surfaces in this one. Okay, I'm trying to get this little fog coming up from this rock in the foreground, but it's getting really blobby and awkward there, so I'm going to blend that out a little bit. So there's going to be a few more bushes like in this area. In the end result, or in the final, whatever, the final piece. All right, so let me show you what this looks like. I know it's really hard to see with the all the glare coming off of this like this, but you can see it looks like that. You can see where my impressions of those rocks were in there, just as a little bit of a guideline. And what we'll do is we'll reintroduce those again right now. I think, yeah, I think that's it. I'm trying to decide if I want to go in more here or there. And if you just joined in, this is what this is going to be looking like, or positioned like down in this area like that. You're thinking, what the heck is it? It's supposed to be like this little, whatever, pond. You'll see. Okay. I laugh because I have no idea if this is going to work or not. We'll see if, whatever the techniques that we've utilized in the past, hold true as far as, potential decent application of the two different surfaces here. Like a little magical little pool. When I was thinking about this, we could do like this, like a if you're doing a like forest scene or something like that. If this area down here looks pretty cool, we can have something like a little hidden pool. I don't know, it doesn't have to be in a forest, but any kind of scenario. And if you're doing it on this type of paper, it'd look really kind of this magical little pool, like a, you know, like a fountain of youth or something like that type of thing. Okay, I'm not trying to get this exactly over my previous impression, but we stamped it, that previous impression of those rocks, these rocks right here, in just a really light, whatever, memento desert sand right there, just so that I don't have to be perfect with the impressions right here. Okay, now see that right there? We don't have all of this just shining right through my rocks, and that's where that whiting out of the background comes into play. And then we can also color that white with our colored pencils. You know, which we wouldn't be able to do because you can't color directly onto this type of holographic right here. With certain types of media. I don't know, maybe we can go into it with alcohol inks or something like that. Maybe that would work. Yeah, that's like a test for another time, though. I'm not sure how applications of this brilliance ink that's just sitting on the surface like that will take alcohol inks. I think that's going to really grab, this paper is going to really grab and dry that image on there really fast, but this pigment ink might be built up too much, even in its dry form, to not drag and kind of smear with alcohol ink applications. Hello, Sharita! I was going to do this after I struggled with knowing where to put the pigment ink. Oh, okay. Didn't we do something like that before? I can't remember. Maybe it was on the silver cardstock or something like that, where we were stamping on it and then wiping off some of the pigment ink after. I don't know, I can't remember. Yeah, give it a shot, you know, just in terms of positioning. And then, you know, if we do them really light, you know, that, you know, the image underneath it isn't going to show through, except, you know, like it right there. It's light enough. Hey, it looks like that, really. It really shows through at some angles right there. You can see where I stamped this rock up, like, much higher above that. This is all going to get colored in, and I'm going to be adding an additional pigment ink down here. Okay, so we have these rocks right in here. And we're done with this. These. And let's move over to our boulders with lichen here. Hello, Erica! Good to see you. Thanks for checking out the video, the live stream. Let's say this type of art before. Is the image to the left, the covered bridge, the final product of this process? To the left of the covered bridge? Oh, you're talking about right here? Is this image right here the final product? This is going to be combined with this lower section right here. This is going to be this, like a, I don't know, kind of, in theory, this mystical little pool, okay? So I've never combined like this printable holographic vinyl sticker paper with, I don't think it with an image above it. This area down below when I'm doing this type of process is usually a piece of like silver cardstock that's going to be really reflective, but we're trying out this holographic one, just, I don't know, just for kicks, you know, just to see if it's a little bit different. So I guess somewhat instructional here, but it's more kind of experimental. I've done all these types of things, but it's just kind of combining it in a little bit of a different process here. So, so with this type of whatever construction right here, I'm stamping out this imagery onto a piece of, where's another piece right here? This is just some cheap pre-printed stationery paper, okay? And that's what I stamped out this covered bridge on. This area right here was completely open, okay? Now this is what I'm going to be combining it with right here. So it looks like this little pool of water right in here, or a little pond or something like that. Here's this little bridge coming this way, and then we're going to create this little foreground area in here that has this little whatever reflective rainbow kind of looking, or rainbow pool right in here. So hopefully it'll harmonize decently with that upper section right here, because one of the things about this paper right here, it's kind of cool because it has like these inherent tones. It has like every color of the rainbow in here, but see this right in here, that's like the color of the paper, and that's what color this, we have up here. So hopefully we can get it to kind of harmonize in an interesting way. We'll see here. Okay, so that being said, when thinking about these different colors down here, I want to bring in some colors from this upper portion into this lower portion right here. And by the way, I call these kind of inner card types of things, just taking advantage of that fold there. I call them either horizon cards or reflection cards if it involves like a piece of reflective metallic cardstock. Just going for like a little bit of a 3D type of look, without really having to do three-dimensional types of applications on here. We're just taking advantage of the interior fold of a card instead of putting the scene on the outside of a card, which, we do most of the time. It's just putting it on the interior here. For fun. All right, let's see here. If anyone has any questions, ask away. There's no bad questions here. If anyone's curious about anything. All right, let me see here. I was going to try, now that I saw how kind of my test prints or registration prints went onto the card, the holographic really well. Maybe I'll just go on directly with some of these other tones here. Man, that adds in an extra little element here. So when I stamped this desert sand, if anyone just joined in, when I stamped out my registration impressions on here, just where I know where those rocks were going to go, I stamped into this color and it's stamped on here in a light tone. So I think I could just stamp out some imagery on here, like in green, just directly on here. And I don't know, I suspect it's going to look green directly on top of the sticker paper. I thought I had to put a field of white underneath it and then stamp on the white for it to read as green, but I don't know. Let's give it a try here. Let's test this out. All right, so this is going to be some different foreground imagery. I'll do it in green, or I'll do it in a couple different values here, just for a little bit of extra depth. Yeah, that looks pretty good right there. That green right there, just directly onto the holographic, printable holographic sticker paper. Okay, you can see where it's stamped onto the white there too, but it really stamps out really well in color directly onto the vinyl. printable vinyl. I should always remember to say printable vinyl, because there's vinyl holographic sticker paper too, okay? And what I'm stamping using for inks here are dye-based inks, which are water-based, and then the Brilliance white pigment inks, okay? Again, water-based. All right, let's get a couple of these impressions in here. Like about like so. Okay. So we're looking like that. Now let's layer it a little bit more, I think, with some black impressions, and I'll switch back to my black Brilliance ink, because that'll stamp over this really nicely. The grain didn't stamp over the white too well. It's a little bit translucent, okay? Where the black will be a little bit more opaque. So if you have different colors of Brilliance ink, that'd be ideal too. You know, if I had like a green Brilliance ink, but I don't. I do make my own stamps, so I design and make stamps in a line of stamps. Well, Stampscapes, okay? That's my line of rubber stamps. So modular, scenic stamping, they call it, rubber stamps. So they're all images of nature. And we say that when combined form seamless scenes, okay? So it's like a, I don't know, a gigantic, I wouldn't call it a puzzle or something like that where it has to fit in with one another, but just through, you know, simple layering of the imagery, you can combine to create, you know, whatever different worlds you want with them. It could be different ecosystems. It could be seasonal. Someone just mentioned, you know, doing like zombies, which I love doing. You know, Halloween type of scenarios. We can put, like I said, the headless horseman running out of that. Christmas cards. All right, let's see here. Like that. And we're repeating. One thing about rubber stamps, just the very nature of it is about the repetition of imagery. So I'm just using certain portions of this, you know, different angles, and repeating it. So let me get my, just the gist of how this is looking right now. So we're kind of starting to build it up a little bit like that. And I'm stamping all this out right now because I'm going to be doing some colored pencil work right over the top of these rocks in here. Again, I can't color this paper right here because it's not going to take it, this vinyl metallic paper. But having laid down some of the white Brilliance ink that is dried in there now, you can add some tone to it using dry media, i.e. colored pencils, or Linda, what was that again that you used? The Tim Holtz, was it something pigment pencils, or pigment crayons? Okay. All right. So we have these tones right here, these mauve tones, and this whole mauve kind of scheme in here. And I want to add some of those tones in there. Should I do that right now, or let me do a little bit of shading on here first. I can't add too much tone in here because that white pigment ink isn't laid in here really thick. Oh, before I do that too, let's get some additional texturing in here. using this little rock stamp. And this little texture also provides kind of a nice head start to adding in some shading work as well. And we're using those repeated impressions here to get, you know, lighter impressions as well of the image. It's an image, but, you know, it's just texture. I should use the larger version of this rock as well in this piece. Okay, so there we go, like that. It's a little bit more textural. And then let's go in with some of that shading work. All right, so let's anchor these in. Right now, those rocks are kind of floating in the piece, so we need to get those a little bit more set into it with some visual weight. And the way you do that is just right at the base of things, you can add in some shading like this. Okay, and then on the lower half of the rock here, there's already shading on there, but you can add in a little bit extra. You can add in grayscale to it, you know, because rubber stamps are just usually, they're what they call line art. It's either black or white. Now I have a lot of stippling work in here that add like different shades of gray, but it's really just like a black dot, you know, spaced out differently. Like a Loch Ness monster. What about, you know, what would be good is, what was that? What was that character from Ophelia, right? You see those pictures of that woman kind of. I guess she's drowned in the water or something like that. But yeah, most of the like the what was that? Those artists called the Pre-Raphaelites. You know, it's a little bit more kind of ethereal looking. You know, this woman kind of like on the surface or something like that. I think I've seen a couple kind of images like that. I don't think, you know, they wouldn't be around like a covered bridge or something like that, but it'd be kind of interesting. Yeah, yeah, I love you deeply. Check out check out some of my live streams around like Halloween, although we don't have to wait that long. For some of those types of scenarios. Those are some of my favorite scenes. Linda here, Linda B. I don't know, Linda, is that one of your favorite, you know, genres? You know, the Halloween types of scenarios. If it's not, that kind of surprises me. Linda does like all kinds of. I don't know how many images you have of Halloween, Linda, but it's a lot. Outside of like even the Stampscapes, the newer Stampscapes ones. Linda does like some gigantic Halloween scenarios with some really cool, um, you know, types of oh, monster scenarios. All right, so see this right here? We're just kind of anchoring those down. Don't they look like they're sitting in the scene a little bit more now? There's a little bit more kind of visual weight to them, I think. Let's see. Were they the Distress Watercolor Pencils? Is that what they're called, Linda? Distress Watercolor Pencils? Okay, now, on these rocks right here, you see where there's some shading on them in the designs. I'm going to just go in and we'll reiterate that a little bit more with some of this pencil, but then we'll leave the top portions of them light, so it looks like they're a little bit more rounded. So you just kind of hit them with a little bit of like a grayscale application. You don't have to, like I said, they're already kind of shaded, but just kind of adding in that little extra with colored pencils, or if you're a watercolorist, you can do that. Do stuff like that. I'm not talking about just for like this type of scenario, but when we're stamping on just different types of paper. But see that right there? And it's pretty fun, the way these images stand out against reflective cardstocks like that. Okay, so we have that right there. So it's looking a little bit more three-dimensional as we go. So I'm looking at these objects up here. Let's address this right now too and start to add in a little bit more tone to them. We'll anchor them down a little bit to be a little bit more whatever specific as to what I'm doing. So there's rocks like this, within the scenario, and then what I'm doing is I'm adding tone like this, and then we're transitioning it out like this. So it's like dark, darker to lighter, darker to lighter, and darker to lighter like that. And sometimes, what I do is I extend out that shade from the object a little bit out like that. And that's what we're doing like right here. See, I kind of bring a little bit of that shade like out this way and this way. It depends if I had enough of that white pigment ink underneath there. Okay, so adding these at the base of these trees right here. And you just do this. Now, see, it got kind of heavy up here with my tiny rocks texture. So I didn't really plan for that. It just kind of stamped darker there. So what you do is you just kind of go with it and make that like this little slope right in there, like a little bit of a shaded slope right like that. Adding around these rocks here. Like that. And there's some of these rocks right down here in the foreground. Because it's the midground, because the lower portion is really the foreground, but the closest point to this upper area right in here. Okay, I like to add a little bit more tone to where upper portion meets lower portion. Okay, and we'll come in here. And this is black right here. It's a black colored pencil, but it's really just like a 10% grayscale or so that I'm probably applying to 90% of it, just to get a little bit more of that shaded anchoring going on. All right, that's just some of the black there. We'll blend it out more with some additional violet tones and things like that in staying with the color scheme like this. Okay, let's see here. It's not my favorite time of year, believe it or not, but one of my favorite genres. Isn't it fun? Yeah, it makes it. It's like a fun. It's. I'm always going for these kind of whimsical. I always use that word. These whimsical types of looks in scenes, and yeah, just those. Using that type of imagery. Loch Ness Monster, like, we're talking about here, Loch Ness Monster, or zombies, or something like that. It's like, it really does add a lot of it's just a change from, what we're stamping out most of the year. We're stamping out scenes like this, and we'll throw like a deer in there or something like that, or you know, a bear, or, someone, little subject matter, like a person fishing, or, reclining or something like that. But then, you do the same scenario, make it a little bit darker, around, you know, Halloween or whatever. Like I said, it didn't have to be during that time only, but instead of, a beautiful, like a sunset, dusk, walk on the beach, it's a headless zombie. Okay, so here's some of this violet tone, adding into the, you see how I just added a little bit of violet tone in the background there, and it makes this bridge kind of pop out a little bit more just by making it slightly darker. And here's like underneath the eaves right here on the covered bridge, or on the interior like that, just staying with the color scheme. And it makes the object, I think, more, look at it, has more volumes and more dimensional. So here we're just doing it with color. You can do it with, like black as well. I would do it both. All right, and let's see. Here, while I'm just doing it with this one, let's add in some of those tones in this lower section here. Your fingers have a mind of their own these days. Tim Holtz, Distress Pigment Watercolor Crayons. Got it. Okay. So I didn't lay down a huge amount of white pigment ink onto my background underneath these rocks, but I laid down enough probably for about 2 or 3 layers of color. So I don't want to commit too much of this color right here. So I'm just adding a really light application of it, because once I cover up an area with too much colored pencil, it's hard to kind of lay down some additional tone over the top of that first, whatever, 1 or 2 layers of this waxy, media on there. Again, because it's allowing me to go to color it, but like I said, it's not like a piece of paper, that's got some texture and tooth to it. Okay, it provides a little bit of tooth to it. I don't know if you can even see it here. Maybe I should switch off to the other one. My darker violet. Okay, let's switch off to this one here. Yeah, violet, that's what it's called. And we'll hit this in the shadow areas a little bit more. And you can make your shadows under the rocks a little bit richer, instead of just going with black, grayscale. We can add some tone to it. I guess violet is kind of a cool temperature most of the time. There's some violets, like a magenta. I'm not sure if that's like just a pure magenta. It's almost temperatureless. I guess this one's a little bit of a cool tone. And again, I'm doing this to kind of make it, or try to have it harmonize with the tones from this upper portion. This, again, it's, this is a really dynamic area down here with that holographic, but and not only that, that top scene, this paper right here is supposed to be a real aged looking print. So we have something holographic and super dynamic, reflective, and we're trying to harmonize it with something that's supposed to look antiqued. So it's a little bit of a contrasting type of scenario here. All right, so there's a little bit more violet. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, okay, at this angle you can see the violets right in here. And go like that. Okay. And let's bring some of this up into this area. We're going a little bit, some of it looks a little bit harsh to me. We'll mellow that out with some white pigment ink in here. And I think I need a visual anchor point up in here. If it's not the zombies, like I Love You Deeply once, we'll have a, some other, firmer, stronger visual anchor point. Okay. I'm trying to decide if I want any of this tone on this road. I don't want too much because I want it kind of illuminated, to kind of draw the viewer into the scene, like, whatever the pathway. All right, let's go ahead and add that element in here. Just a 1-inch hole punch right here. And let's do this. Again, just the white pigment ink in here, and that area in back of it it's fairly light in tone already, so you'll have to add a decent amount of this, but I don't want just this super crisp white ball of light in here, so I want it to transition a little bit. So we'll go, what I always do, almost all the time, is I'll go thicker and lighter up top, and then I'll have it transition a little bit darker down below like that. It has a little bit more, I don't know, kind of personality to it, like that. Okay, there's not a lot of contrast here, so I do have to go pretty thick and white here. But let's try to have a little bit of contrast in there. Or, I don't know, a little bit of a transition, tonal transition. Like that. Okay. So like that right there, right down below. I think it looks a little bit more, I don't know, maybe like graceful of a look than just, again, just straight tone like that. It would be cool if they had that reflecting down here, but in these, these types of metallics like this, when you have it, that area right there is like way up here somewhere, and that's too far to really reflect anything too crisp in that area. So, okay, so now that I have this tone right in here established, I can kind of go in and add in my reflective elements based on how light, my light source is in here. So Let's see here. So we shaded at the base of objects. Now we'll do some highlighting on the tops of them. I think I might want to add in a couple little elements into here. Let me see. Maybe like this little bush here or something like that. Let me do this right here. I'm going to come in with an overhang in here. And let's do this. I'll try to get a little touch of that over that moon right there. Okay, just a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a balancing element on the other side. And let me see in here. That. Let's try this deer here. Or let's see. Like that. Let me think about that here. Let me see how this lighting is going to look. I want like a little bit more elements right in here. But let's see. I mean, the lighting might provide that inherently, but let's see. Okay, so let's add that lighting in here first. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the top edge of some of these areas. Objects, I should say. So we shaded the base of them a little bit, and we're highlighting the tops of them. This is a pastel pencil, and it works pretty good on this stationery paper that I'm using, this cheap stationery paper. It has the weight of like just your basic copy paper. See this right here? We have this lighting coming through there like that, and then we'll add it down into the landscape. If you ever add too much with the pastel pencil, just, you know, it's easy to just wipe it right off, or take an eraser or something like that. You can usually wipe it off with your finger or something like that too. And see these flower elements in here also have this lighting on them, so, you know, it's good to, I don't know, kind of have other imagery within the scene also having that same sort of lighting effect on them to, you know, to harmonize with the rest of the scene like that. And see this right here, this road is largely the same tone in here just in general. So, you know, if you just kind of want to add a little bit of variation to it, it doesn't really matter where you do it either. But just having that little bit of variation like that, it changes it from, kind of having something a little bit more monotonous to a little bit of a varied lighting scheme. Though it potentially adds to the richness of the surface, having variation and contrast like that. Okay, let's see. This is water, and this would probably be all in shade, but artistic license. We're gonna add some lighting down in here to make that water area somewhat illuminated. Okay, like that. And this is all of a really soft application of lighting, and we'll add in some crisp applications of lighting as well into here. I almost forgot about these rocks on the other side because they're kind of buried in darkness, but you kind of add some highlighting on them. It kind of pulls them out from the background a little bit. Rooftop. You can add a little bit of lighting to that, or the front, like that. It can kind of pull it out from the background a touch. All right. Let me see here. This right here is reflective, so it brings up more lighting up in here too. So it looks a little bit darker like that, but then we got a little bit more illumination coming from below, like this. All right, let's try some additional texture and highlighting in the form of acrylic paint pens. I don't know, maybe that pink might be a little bit too much. Let's give this a try here. I think these two are the same right here, but let's try it out. This right here is probably too dark, so I'll probably just use two of these in here. Okay, I usually start a little bit darker, so let's go with this kind of lavender one. And I'll add in some highlights and texture and lighting in some of my darker areas, like right in there. It gets a little dark right here, so adding that little texture in there can kind of be nice. Colored pencils and things like pastels really provide a really nice kind of general application of tone or shading over an area, but sometimes if I do too much of that, it gets a little bit monotonous in a big area like that. So this kind of goes back in, and you can add these little crisp little elements that kind of bring an area to life. Or it can bring the whole surface, to life too. But especially in kind of like darker little areas like that, that's kind of like a nothing area. If you just kind of bring in some highlighting on some objects like this, And if like white is going to stand out too much, you just kind of go with a little bit of a lighter version of whatever color is in there, and it kind of brings those objects around a little bit, or a lot, you know, depending on, you know, how much of the same texture is in those areas. Underneath the tree right in here, there's these little rocks in there, and what I do is I just, for the most part, I'm just kind of putting like a dot right in the center of them. So it has a little bit of a highlight right in there. And clumps of grass, I put a few dots right over the top side edge of it. Where on the bottom edge, I put like some shadow. Okay. That. All right, let's take a look and see how those reflections are looking. And there, this pen is working really fantastic. It's really flowing well today. Okay, so let's get a few little highlights. I don't think I'm going to add as much white in here as I thought, because this violet really stands out pretty nicely. Okay, and we'll add, I don't know if I'll, okay, I was going to add some down here. I don't think I need to. Maybe a little bit of texture in the darkness right in here, in my shaded area. It might look okay, but I don't, okay, right here. There's not too many areas where this is really going to stand out down here, because this area up here is darker to begin with. Let's try the white here now. Okay, this is bringing back memories. I really enjoy adding this white highlight on tops of my objects, like right in here. You can see that little white highlight right up on the tops of these rocks right in here. You see the difference between these and like these ones over here. These ones right here, when you add this in here, it can potentially look, you know, quite a bit more dimensional. And, you know, with a little bit more contrast like that, like a small little area like that too. See that right there? These objects right here, and we'll do it to this one. And this one right here, there's more like big open fields rather than like these thin little areas of highlighting. But you can still add some to it. Or like up here too, you can do that thing what they call, what is it, lineless coloring or something like that? Where you just kind of eradicate that line, you know, that's in the design right up top with a little bit of white. And the edge shows up in this case. Sometimes getting rid of that line on a piece of white paper doesn't always work as well, but in this case, we're working on the top of the holographic, so it shows it pretty well. I'm talking about the line, you know, like white on holographic shows up better than white on white. Okay, so a few of these down below, like this, like a little transitioning light. Then here, you can add it on some of these leaves. Okay, so a little bit more highlighting, like that. Hopefully it's looking a little bit more kind of dimensional or three-dimensional. This is what, you know, someone opens up their card that you give to them. If you give it away, you know, after you work on it, you might want to give it to whoever it was intended for originally. Okay, let's add in that little bit of a stronger highlighting in here. And we can create our kind of little path of illumination. It's like a little corridor of extra strong lighting. There's little fence posts in here. You can kind of bring those out a little bit. Edge of the covered bridge. A little bit of extra lighting on the pathway, the road. All right, let's take a look at here. Hello, Chiquitas. Good to see you. Thanks for checking out the live. All right, I get like that. Let's add in. Let's go ahead and add in. It's like our almost finishing touch here. And now we'll add in some kind of more whimsical elements to this, I think. So, okay. So one of the things I did on this scene was I added these white blocking out applications of white pigment ink in here, stamped over them with the rocks. Now we're going to go back and add in some additional white pigment ink right over the top of these, but not over the whole thing, just a little bit of a, I don't know, some added application of it so that it looks like this is in mist. Okay, I've used this cotton ball a couple times. Let's switch out to a new one. I want this to go in here fairly lightly and airy. Okay. Again, white Brilliance ink. Brilliance ink is a white pigment ink. Or it's a pigment ink. It's a water-based pigment ink as opposed to an oil-based one. Okay. So it dries on the printable holographic vinyl sticker paper. Really important keyword is printable. So the descriptions of this type of holographic will be inkjet and laser compatible usually, but it also usually have printable in the description. And that works with, the printable vinyls work with water-based media. Oh, did this the video pop up on a on your feed or something like that. Well, thanks for checking it out here. Okay, so I'm adding this really lightly. Okay, so this is a wet medium, okay? But the sensibility or the idea is that I'm kind of adding it in here as if it were like a powder or something like that. So I want a really thin application of it. Here, let me try to zoom in here a little bit. Sorry, it's going out of focus if I get too close, but see, I'm adding a little bit like that. And I'm not going to add it in everywhere. I'm just going to add it in like here and there. Like this applications of tone are very crisp, like this rock right here, which I think looks good like that. But sometimes I want it to be a little bit varied like that. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. I'll hold it up so you can see it because there's a little bit of a glare. And at certain angles, the light, studio light's cut through that. So see right there? So it's a little bit lighter like that. So it's a little bit more atmospheric. Okay, and we'll throw that here or there throughout this piece, this lower section here. Okay, and that should do it for down there. Again, it's a little bit more atmospheric, okay? And then what I like to do is I like to do it on this upper portion as well. Or, I like to do it throughout my scene. So we have our moon right here, and we have this little roadway in here. Okay, this pigment ink works a lot differently on something like the printable holographic vinyl sticker paper than it does on a piece of just some cheap matte, stationery paper. On here, this paper is absorbent, so you can apply a little bit more on there, and it kind of absorbs into the surface a little bit faster, but still you don't want like big blobs of it going down. You see this kind of little cloudy kind of atmosphere like that? You just add it really slowly, and it just, each tap kind of builds up a little bit, so you don't get this big blob of white pigment ink on there. And it's just like I said, it's almost like applying like a layer of white powder over the top when you're applying a very dry application of it, and you can get these kind of nice atmospherics right over the top of your imagery like that. See, this is like some mist or something like that, kind of creeping through that opening right in there. It gives a little bit more, kind of atmosphere and personality to the piece. Okay, so I stamped this right down here. These rocks, this cluster of rocks. I think it looks okay, but I like it with some variation in there, so I'm muting that a little bit like that, and we'll add it throughout the scene. It illuminates some areas because this is white. It's like a little, midnight mist or something like that. Okay, these trees, it's just like a nothing area right in here, Not that this is going to make it really super exciting in here or something like that, but see this like little added mist like that? It kind of brings it to life, and it kind of gives like a little bit of a illumination or movement, like to an area that maybe otherwise is just kind of a little bit more boring. Let's see. Like that. And if you ever add too much, just, before it dries, just kind of wipe it off. It does on a piece of matte paper. You're not going to get it all off, but if you, it's like, oh my god, I added that in there, and if you don't like it, then just kind of wipe it away a little bit, or just go back to your colored pencils and just tone it in again or something like that. All right, but see, that's like this. You kind of illuminate this little area like that. And it's kind of like a fun visual pathway in there. Oh, you like mixed media? Yeah. The thing about, so I used to use glossy cardstock and dye-based inks 99% of the time. And then I would use a little bit, I'd use some Brilliance inks and white paint pen. But then it was like, I had this collection of papers of a lot of metallics that I had collected over the years. So I started playing around with things like that and things like this. Printable vinyl holographic sticker paper, which I never would have used. At one point in time, I thought, let's go ahead and play around with this a little bit and see what we can do with it. And then that that opened the floodgates, or just the Brilliance ink, which can stamp onto different types of surfaces because it's water-based and it'll dry, and stays on ink. That really opened the floodgates up for a lot more experimentation and mixed media, like you're saying. The acrylic paint pen packs came out. Before that, we had the gel pens, which were pretty good, sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna stamp some textures right at the base of this. This line here is a little bit too fixed for me. Okay, so I just want a little bit of variation right here. So I'm going to break that hard edge up a little bit with some additional rocks. Just like that, okay. Which I wouldn't need to do if this was just the scene right here, but it's just, I'm using it, of course, in conjunction with that upper portion, so we need to soften that transitional edge, I guess. But yeah, it's like every time I add in or figure out something that, can be done with media, and I guess the word is sequencing, which I usually say. Like you can build up like certain types of media over the top of one another a lot of times, just for some different effects. And it's like most of it's like, a lot of it's like the stuff that we have in our collections already. So like colored pencils or pastels, stuff like that. Yeah, but yeah, I love it now. And yeah, some of the stuff, it's almost like there's so many different media surface combination possibilities. And also just the sequencing with them, it could be different the way you sequence the things, in terms of how they end up looking, which is really fascinating to me. It's like the possibilities go up exponentially, don't they, though, when you start using mixed media? Because you might have 3 different things or 4, and then you just use them in different combinations, and it's like the possibilities for the kind of the end result textures or whatever, it just goes up exponentially. All right, so here's some little things like that. You can see I kind of anchored down these rocks a little bit, and this little area right in here in shadow with a little bit more tone like that. So hopefully that looks a little bit 3-dimensional. So right here, what I would do on this, because I use some pastel pencil on here, is I would take this portion and I would spray a spray fixative over the top of it. I use this Krylon spray fix. This right down here, you don't need to do anything with. And this is a vinyl holographic sticker paper, so you can just peel this off right here. And this is the sticker paper. And it's really aggressive too. So you can take that, and this is, you can kind of add it down here, but it's real flimsy. So, and when once it touches, like if you touches down, it's like stuck, you know. So what I might do, I find it easier just to use some of that spray adhesive on here. I use a 3M Super 77, and I'll just throw it right down here, and then kind of put it in that whatever, that fold area right there, and then I lay it down like this. Now, again, it would have the spray fix on the back of it, okay? And then you put the spray fix on the back of this one after you've spray sealed it, okay? And then you butt that up like that and connect it up right in there, and then lay it down like that. You can use your, I mean, if you don't have a spray adhesive and you want to use your, you know, your tape, you know, roller tape or something like that, you can do that. But sometimes I find that, you know, after things sit around, it gets a little wobbly in the interior where it's not like super like flush with the surface. But you can though. But you know, I'd really recommend a spray adhesive over the long. You can do it with like 100 of these cards with one can of spray adhesive too. So don't like totally like build up like a thick slathering of glue with spray adhesive. You just need kind of like a little thin layer on the back, and it applies really nice and evenly and aggressively too. Okay, so let me add in a couple more things to this. I'm going to add in these little, yeah, whatever, whimsical little fireflies in here, or orbs, or I don't know, whatever you call them, little fairy little lights like this. I'm going to make them glow too, so we'll add a little bit of a glowing element to them. I'll go a little bit larger here in the foreground. Something like this. That. How about like one in here? You have to get like the positioning of these fireflies like perfect, and with a specific like number of them. I'm joking, folks. All right, so there's like 5 and 3 and 4 right in there. And let's put a couple down in this little section right in here too. This is a fun little way you can add in like a little, I don't know, whimsical element, but it's kind of lighting too. We'll have it like there, it's like sitting on the, like a leaf or something like that. So if you have an area that's just kind of otherwise, you know, kind of a lost area, it's in darkness or something like that, put a little bit of a highlight or, you know, whatever, firefly. Okay, let's see, I thought I had a Q-tip around here somewhere. Let's grab another one. 100% cotton Q-tip, okay. I find that the synthetic ones, cotton balls, I don't know, they're really soft, but they don't, they wick moisture, you know, they kind of, you know, they don't absorb it. So the natural cotton, I find, works much better. Okay, so we don't want it all frayed like that. Okay, like that. So you just kind of bump it down a little bit. Okay, and again, it's not a big, super wet blob of white paint that I'm going to be laying down here. So you just going to add it really lightly. Maybe these ones in the real distant, I won't do on all of them. Maybe I'll do it on like 3 of them or so. All right, because that might be a little bit too much. And then these ones up here, you kind of add it right down there, and then just, I'm adding it right in the center. And the little thing I do that is really subtle, but I'll kind of go a little bit more perimeter oriented. So I'm tapping right on the dot, and then I kind of move it around a little bit like that in a lighter tap to get that like transitioning little bit of a glow in there. This one's in kind of a little bit of a lighter area as opposed to like against that black rock right there. So maybe add a little bit more, pigment ink right in there just to make it stand out a little bit. So yeah, there's like little glowing elements like that. It kind of wakens up the those areas in there a little bit and looks a little bit more dimensional too. Okay. Yeah, yeah. It got rid of that hard edge in there, didn't it? Chiquita was mentioning just that little bit right in there. Yeah, it was a little bit too harsh. And in this instance too, I'm really trying to combine or harmonize two really different surfaces here. One's supposed to be like super dynamic and I don't know, whatever. It's almost like futuristic, types of paper, right? And then this right here is the antique, aged floral background stationery paper that I'm stamping on. So, kind of any kind of little transitioning element that you can add to something, to get those two areas to kind of somewhat relate to each other a little bit. So that one, edge was like, it was just too hard of an edge. So we just had to break it up a little bit with, kind of organic form. All right, so there's my little glowing little things. So you can't really see it in certain angles here. And I'm looking at this under studio lights here too, which, are really bright. So these little things like this, might show up easier, you know what I mean, outside of this context right here. But see these little things like that? Little kind of glowing little things like that. Those are kind of little fun little elements like that. And then you have them up here, but then you also have them down in here like that to kind of, create a little bit of a stronger relationship between that top portion and the bottom portion. Let's take a look and see what this looks like here. Try to showcase it at an angle here where you can see it without so much glare. There's so much glare from these studio lights, but this would be roughly, kind of what it looks like here under normal lighting. You can see it, this scene right here with all these studio lights. It's a little bit darker like that, and you can see how dark it is like that. But again, you add this in here. This is really reflecting a lot of light back up into there. But under normal lighting, like I have like big lights coming from at 45-degree angles from both sides. So this is a little bit darker. And let me see if here. Let me see if I can adjust my lighting. Oops. Let me adjust my exposure on my camera, and you can see what I see. Kind of a little bit better in person here. Yeah, okay, that looks better. I just stopped it down once. I have all this glare coming back up in my camera or something like that too, so it was overcompensating there. But anyways, that's what that roughly looks like that. So yeah, it's one of those things. We don't always have to put the scene or something like that, the most of the work on the outside of a card, but in other situations like that. And you put your greeting or something like that on there, happy birthday, wish you were here, whatever. It doesn't have to be black. too. You know, it could be any kind of card base like that, but it can make for a pretty dramatic opening like that. And, you know, I think somewhat 3D-ish looking, you know, without having to really do any type of, I always mention this, without any type of real three-dimensional types of builds to it. Nothing's like actually popping out of there, but it can kind of give that little bit of a feeling to it just by using the natural fold of the card like that. And then, you know, I always say, if you're going to be writing to someone, you know, you can have your introduction, your body, you know, and conclusion right here. So you do your writing right back on here to someone, you know, on the card. So it's like almost like a 3-panel sequenced type of, you know, whatever storyline to a card. It's a little bit less kind of dramatic maybe when someone's like taking something out of a card or something like that, you know, and you're getting your, you know, your main whatever dramatic visual right off the bat, but kind of opening up like this with some of that metallic on there too can be really fun. It's like light coming out of the piece too, if you're using a metallic in there. All right, so anyways, that was pretty fun there. So this is the first time I've just kind of used like a holographic area down here like that. A lot of times it's going with like a much more mirrored type of thing like this right here, you know, for my reflection cards. This is like, whatever, a brushed matte gold over, you know, mirrored gold like this for a, you know, reflection card piece. But this one right here, it's less reflective because it's that muted printable holographic sticker paper, but you can get a little bit of that kind of reflecting down there. But I just wanted to see what this kind of water area could look like. And like I was saying, it would be kind of a cool scenario as like a little, real whimsical, little magical little pond or something like that. Like I said, you know, was that a fountain of youth, you know, type of thing or something like that. So we can have like heavy forested areas or something like that with a little bit of a like a pond or something like that. But instead of having it just done on white cardstock or something like that with whatever blue tones or whatever aqua green in there, you can stamp it on top of this thing and it can kind of have a little bit more movement and variety to it like that. And that's kind of a little fun little element. A lot of us have, you know, some people have a lot of those metallics in their collection. You might not have the printable vinyl, but if you have a metallic cardstock, okay, that's not printable, just be sure and use your StazOn ink to print your impressions on there. On the printable one, use your water-based media, or you can use your StazOn too. But if you want to get a little bit of extra tone in there, then invest in two new pads if you don't have them already. So a lot of people have like a Brilliance. It's like, oh, I haven't used it like in 20 years, which was the case with me. So just get a re-inker for it, and you should be on your way with this type of surface right there. So anyways, it's really fun stuff to work on and to play around with. Where'd the one I just did last night? Gosh, I just did all this stuff. Oh, here it is right here. So that's the Starry printable holographic sticker paper, which isn't available in its own pack, but they come in like packs of like 4 to 6 different types of printable vinyls. So much fun to play around with. And you start off with something that's already inherently fairly exciting in the holographic surfaces, you know. So it really gives you a nice head start to having a somewhat of an exciting end result. All right. Let's see here. Glad you liked the green tones there, Sharita. Yeah, do you see that right here? There's having some of those green tones right here. I wanted to add in some of those little green tones in this lower portion because there's a little bit of that green up there in that aged foliage paper. So bringing some of those down in there. I didn't really bring some, I can bring a little bit of green into these rocks here. That would be pretty good too. It could represent like moss or something like that. But yeah, it was just trying to find out if we can get this to whatever, harmonize with that upper portion right there. I think it did pretty good, you know. Yeah. I don't know, I'll have to play around with this a little bit more. And I think I've done this before where we did horizon cards or something like that, but I think it was like holographic imagery up here over holographic down there. If we didn't do that, I know we went reflective mirrored stuff up top and down below, or it was either that or the holographic kind of northern lighty type of surface. It might have been like this over the top of that, type of thing going down below. Man, there's so many different combinations of things. Too many combinations, not enough either hands or time to utilize them all. But it keeps it kind of fresh, I kind of forget about some of these things, and it's like you go back to it and it's like, oh yeah, that was really fun stuff to work with. All right. Thanks for checking out the live stream / experiment. Hope you the end process and result. To see you in the next stream. All right, everyone. Good night. And hope to see you in the next live stream scene or experiment. Most of them are experiments. Fun stuff. All right, everyone. Good night.